It's 140 on Gams FM. That song coming through is from Motswana, who is based out in the UK. I believe she goes by the name of Lorraine Ditebet. It's a song called Good Vibes. That's what I gave you. And that's what I'm always trying to give you on this show. I'm trying to get you to receive these good vibes. I'm trying to get you to rest, relax, rejuvenate, and to recharge yourself. Now, to help me do that, I have on the line with me somebody who is, she's a seeker, an entrepreneur, an agent for life of freedom for humanity. So she's all about us as humanity living a life of freedom. She's a hypnotherapist, a global traveler, and an author of Unshackle Thyself from Subconscious Programming that has kept you circling the runway all your life. I didn't know that part about you, Dr. Chinoda, by the way. A good afternoon to you.
Which part?
That you were an author. I was not aware. I know you wear many hats, and I believe there's also the technological aspect in which...
Yes, I'm an electronic engineer as well.
That's another hat.
That's going into the sunset now.
Right? So Dr. Muriel Chinoda is who I have on the line with me. She's actually joining us from South Africa, but I do believe at some point we'll be able to have you in studio to speak a little bit more about hypnotherapy. But that's really the hat we want you to wear, and I think it ties in so well with what you're talking about, being a seeker, being an agent for a life of freedom, for humanity as a whole, being somebody who's written a book that if all of us could just unshackle ourselves from the programming that has kept us in a very miserable rat race, I think the world would be so much of a better place, and we wouldn't really need to tell people, recharge yourself, relax, because they would know how to do it. But yeah, that's who I have on the line with me. Dr. Chinoda, thank you for joining me. Good afternoon and welcome to Gabs FM.
Afternoon. Thanks for having me, Kathy.
I'm so excited so excited to have this conversation because in my own journey of healing and just self-love is not as fluffy and warm as everybody a lot of the time thinks it is. Sometimes it's painful and you have to look into your life and accept some hard truths and face some not so pleasant realities, So part of what, I was doing led me to discover hypnotherapy. And let me just throw in there that the only time I'd ever heard of hypnotherapy, I had an aunt who used to smoke, and I think she did maybe maximum 3 sessions of hypnotherapy and she quit. And that was huge for me because there was a point where I think all my aunts used to smoke, everybody in my family used to smoke, and they all quit, in their various methods and so forth. And my aunt kind of did it first, and she just went for therapy 2-3 sessions and she was done. So then I also then went to discover a little bit more about hypnotherapy, but it wasn't something that I knew much about. And I think in Botswana, we don't really have that much access to it. But let me do this. And I always like to start off the foundation, Dr. Chinoda, with an understanding of what we are talking about. So when we say hypnotherapy, what exactly are we talking about? What is hypnotherapy?
That's a very good question. It's a good starting point. Maybe just a comment on your aunt. I think that's what really drew me to hypnotherapy, the fact that it's so fast and effective and long-lasting. 3 sessions, somebody is free. That, for me, is really what draws me to this, and I love it for that. And yes, for most things, you can get it done in an average of 3 to 5 sessions, sometimes even 1 or 2. I've seen some phobias and things healed in a session.
Wow.
So that's the beauty. So yes, what is hypnotherapy? It's really it's a modality, let's put it that way, that actually employs a mind-body connection. It's an intervention that understands that as a human being, we're not just IQs. There's EQ and stuff. There's the heart and there's the head and the brain and all that. So hypnotherapy really employs a connection between that mind and the body and employs states of relaxation where we allow you to go into your subconscious mind as an individual, as a client, to actually get the answers for yourself by actually tuning into your subconscious mind and actually getting to the root of what is it that's actually ailing me, that's creating issues or pain for me, that's creating blockages or limiting beliefs that are actually hurting the rest of my life. So that's really what hypnotherapy is. So it employs hypnosis as a tool, which is that relaxed state, and then towards a therapeutic outcome. So you come to a hypnotherapist saying, I've got this issue like your aunt. I want to quit smoking. That's your therapeutic outcome that you're actually seeking. Then we employ hypnosis to actually get you to quit smoking, to give you your outcome and the benefits that you are looking for. So did I answer that properly?
Yeah, but now you've made me want to ask another question because you said it's the use of hypnosis. So in my head, hypnosis and hypnotherapy were the same thing, but clearly they're not. Break down the two for me. How are they different? Which is what?
Okay, all right, okay. Let's put it this way. Hypnosis is the tool. Hypnotherapy is the employment of the tool by a therapist. Does that clarified? So hypnosis is that relaxed state where you actually in a state of focused attention, to the exclusion of all peripheral activities, and you're open to suggestion and exploration. Let me give you an example of what hypnosis is. Hypnosis is it's a state. Everything that we do in life is actually a state. When we drive, you're in this state, and most of us, I can bet you, they have gone through it, or we have gone through it. You stop at a traffic light and you get into this, maybe at an argument with hubby or the boss at the office, or something is just bugging you, and you just zone out and you forget that you're actually standing by that traffic light until somebody behind you hoots, and then you dodge back into reality and move on. Yeah, how many times have we done that?
Yeah.
You were actually in a hypnotic state. That's like a concentrated state of awareness towards just one focal point. It's focused attention towards something to the exclusion of everything else. I'll give you another example of a hypnotic state. We sit by the television and you get so absorbed into this movie or this series, and your child is calling, "Mommy, dinner is ready," or something, and you didn't even hear them. Why? Because you're so super concentrated in this state. So that's a hypnotic state. What we do in therapy is to use that state to direct and guide it towards something that will actually provide you your healing. So that's the hypnotherapy. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, you said hypnosis is a state, right?
Yes.
And it's
it's a naturally occurring one. We all experience it every day, in and out. It's just we don't call it that, but we all experience it every day.
That's what I was about to say, that it's actually naturally occurring. Because when you talk about concentrate, like me and books, give me a book, let me get absorbed into it. I won't even, feel the temperature, the time, the people around me. Like I literally zone out. So
exactly.
Basically, hypnosis.
It's a zoned state.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Or the guys, they're watching their soccer. They almost like they're going to get into that TV screen. Actually, they get so hooked and so absorbed, so concentrated. It's a hyper focus that actually results in increased learning and suggestibility if you choose.
So you said hypnosis is the actual tool, I think you said, and then hypnotherapy is the use of the tool. So
yes.
How do the two work? I think the issue of whether hypnosis is mind control, I would like us to touch on that one, because too much of the time when people think hypnosis, they think, wait, so you want me to let someone else into my mind and then they'll control my mind? No.
Yes. Okay. So do you want the good or the bad answer?
Both. Give me both.
Okay. Both. Okay. All right. The reality is there's mind control all over from the day that you started, and not in that sense. So, okay, so hear me out, but I just want to clarify this. When you are a child, from the day you're born, let's start there, because, the prenatal thing, some people have got issues with it, but the moment you're a living conscious entity in your mother's tummy, then you're actually starting to sense you're conscious. All right. Then you're born in the little baby and stuff like that. How do you actually get them to learn, or how do infants learn? Take your little niece or your baby, for those that have got children, from age 0 when they're born up to especially 7 years old. How do they learn and make sense of the world around them? We actually learn by modeling what's around us. Is that mind control or not? You be the judge. Does that make sense? So you see your sibling or big brother actually eating with a spoon, doing, a certain way, and you find that little toddler, they're actually imitating, they're doing exactly the same. 2 days later, you find they're actually doing it themselves without the big brother. Or there's certain languages and words that probably they're no in your household, and the little boy, the grade 5, brought it back from school and they were saying it in the household. The toddler was listening. 2 days later, as mom, we hear the little girl, the sweet little girl, they actually utter those words. And you're like, where did they get that from? That's learning and modeling. Do you call that mind control or not? I think that's where we need to understand what we mean by mind control. Because it's actually exactly the same state that you're in. So kids, those toddlers, those formative years, is the same hypnotic state that they're actually in. They take in everything. They're so suggestible because they're actually in an alpha brainwave state. A kid, a 3-year-old, when you tell them this is Santa Claus and they're going to be coming to town over Christmas, they actually don't have a reasoning capacity to disagree with you. They actually take it as is. And when they go out and they're playing sandcastles and mom and dad, to them it is real because that's their world. That's that state, the alpha state, which is the hypnotic state. So we take that now as an adult and say, let's actually induce that same state, that hypnotic state, that alpha brainwave state, and actually allow you to find and discover for yourself the solutions to your pain and problem. I don't call that brain control, but some people would. And maybe the other reason where it's actually coming from is, your pop culture and stage hypnosis, which is entertainment. They actually want to show it as such. But unless the subject on that stage has agreed to it, you cannot actually get anyone to do what they don't want to do. So it's very important for us to understand that. If somebody has not agreed or consented to it, they actually cannot get into a hypnotic state. And even in a hypnotic state, if a therapist or that stage show host does something that's against the subject's belief systems or values and stuff like that, they immediately get out of the hypnotic state. They're like, their defense comes up and say, hello, hang on, no. So it's not actually possible to control the mind, but we can guide and lead towards a specific outcome by agreement with the therapist, especially for therapeutic outcomes. Did I answer that one correctly?
I think you've addressed my concerns because that was always, something that I think also I once watched this movie. It was a movie that did this Dr. Chinoda where, woman was a hypnotherapist, but there were certain clients that she was controlling and they had no idea what they were doing. And so that kind of just left that in my head. But let's do this as we continue.
Yeah, it does. There's lots of that, the TV, the pop culture that has created quite a lot of wrong perceptions, or they've left a wrong impression. But let me ask you this question, and you would know you're in that space. How many times do adverts and music and movies and politicians and preachers and public speakers use hypnotic suggestions and undertones? Is that control or not? No. And we're listening to politicians and preachers all the time. We're listening to adverts all the time.
Yeah.
We love music and we get into this trance state and it's actually suggesting and putting in there certain things.
Yeah, no,
sometimes things that we actually don't like. Yes,
yeah,
right?
These days I'm always telling people, like, I've always been somebody who listens to lyrics. Now I'm super, like, if a song has words that, say certain things, I'm not interested. And also now that I've started to learn about frequencies and vibrations and how certain frequencies affect you, if it just does that to my body and that vibration is jarring on me, I switch it off. And I'm like, no, I know what this can do.
But we happily subject ourselves to this. Most people were at church this morning and preachers use it all the time. Politicians, the best orators and stuff, they're using hypnotic language. So is that mind control or not? I think that's where individually people need to actually decide.
I love this. Dr. Chinoda says, is that mind control or not? And we're talking about things that you see on a daily. So your TV sprouts this stuff. Your music does just the same, media basically. Looking at even when you go to church, there's a certain, can I call them gimmicks, certain strategies that you'll find even pastors using. And so that question, put forward to you, I think also as an individual, it is very important to take, take responsibility for whatever it is that is going on in your life, in your space. And it is also important to listen to yourself. If your spirit, soul, mind, body tells you, no, this is not an area for me, listen to your gut. It's there. All that is there for a reason. But let's do this. We continue with Dr. Chinora in just a bit. At 1:59 on GAMS FM, we're getting into our third and final hour of the show. This is how much fun I'm having. I'm not even realizing time is literally flying. So can we say I'm hypnotized right now? I'm under hypnosis because I'm just having that much fun. Dr. Chinoda.
Absolutely. I'm having so much fun as well. Enjoying this. Yeah.
We were talking about what hypnotherapy is, the difference between hypnotherapy and hypnosis. We've talked a little bit to the issue of mind control to say if you don't allow it can't really happen. And I just brought up, just in passing, a movie that I'd seen where basically the hypnotherapist then was able to control people and make them do things they didn't wanted, and it was a horror movie, so I didn't even watch the end of it. But let me ask you this. Let's bust some of those myths, because I think on TV we've seen a lot of it looking very fake, and I think that's where people think people are faking it. Just, you're told to watch a pendulum swinging from side to side. Somebody tells you that you're getting sleepy, and I don't know. Let's maybe break down some of those myths. What is not true? What does not happen that we've so often seen?
Okay, all right. Yeah, I suppose it's very, the question you started with, what is hypnosis versus hypnotherapy? So maybe it's actually important to actually bring that back into this discussion in terms of those media portrayals of hypnosis. So hypnosis is, yes, like I said, those relaxed, hyper-focused states. You can achieve those by, swinging the pendulum or the gold watch or the clock or any of those things. If you're going to, and people can try it, the listeners at home, just pick one little dot and keep focusing on it to the exclusion of everything else. You're actually going to start finding yourself getting relaxed. And I'm going to do something here. So as I'm answering your question, just, listen to my voice and allow yourself to, especially if you're sitting, don't do it if you're driving or operating machinery. As you sit there, deeply relax, just breathe in and just let go of everything and anything that doesn't serve you this afternoon. And just set the intention to say, I'm going to relax and just be merry this afternoon. That's right. Just let go and keep letting go. That's right. Hey, what did that do to you, Kathy?
It makes me want to sleep. Like I'm literally yawning in the studio.
Exactly. And I'm sure a few other people in the audience are feeling the same. I'm inducing hypnosis. Okay? Right? I've just induced hypnosis by that. It's that relaxed, comfortable state, and you're letting go. Your conscious mind, that chatter in your mind is actually just shutting down, and you're just getting back to yourself. That's hypnosis. Now, can that be done on stage? Yes. Can you use a gold pendulum or something to give you that concentration and relaxation to the exclusion of everything else? Yes. So they do use that to actually induce the hypnotic state. That's right. So up to that point, whether it's stage hypnosis, the entertainment one, or the hypno one, we are on the same page. We're still together. This is where it differs. Once you're in that state, what are you going to use it for? In the stage version, then they want to use it for entertainment. What entertains? The stuff that goes, that produces shock and all the things that you actually don't want to do. Hence, they do that because that's what they want you to do. But the point still stands. The people should have agreed to that for it to make sense. It's a movie. The plot or the script was the doctor or the therapist is actually going to be controlling people's minds so that it shows whatever the objective of that movie or the archetype of that story. For me now, I use that state and say, you have come to my therapy office with a specific issue. Like the one guy was in my office yesterday. He is stuck. He's a professional. He's done all the things that he knows to do with an MBA and all the other things, but he still feels his life is not lining up from what he's earning and the life that he wants to live. It's not lining up with what he has done. You know, I mean, he has put in all the conscious level efforts, willpower, drive, attended seminars and all the things, and things are not budging. Why is that? So he came to my therapy office because he needs a solution, he needs an answer. And for him it was, then let's actually take that hypnotic state and allow you to get into yourself and find answers. And eventually he found the answer. The answer is, there's an underlying belief that said for him, you know, being rich and having all these things is actually wrong against God. And that's a indoctrination that he got growing up. Most of us also got that. But he discovered that for himself and eventually was able to reframe that and get the answers that he wants. That's the therapy outcome that we got out of the hypnotic state.
Wow.
The stage ones, they want to entertain you. So they'll bring in anything that entertains. Let's bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken, and you guys laugh. You're in the audience to be entertained, so they have to give you the entertainment aspect of that hypnotic state. So I think that's the difference. Hopefully that's clear enough now.
Yeah, no, I think now I understand, and it's been made very clear what it is. Now I'm super, super excited because, I mean, we've given the example and you talked a little bit about how it can make someone, or it can help someone stop smoking. That to me is not a small feat. Hey, every one of my friends who I know that have tried to stop smoking have been very, very unsuccessful. In fact, there's actually a gentleman who I would like your permission to pass on his number, because he's tried again and again and again to stop smoking. And I think it's more than just the act of smoking, or you're stressed so you smoke. I think sometimes there's an underlying root cause and hypnotherapy. I don't know. But let me ask you, how does it exactly work? What will be going on? How does it become this amazing tool that can literally within, say, 5 sessions maximum stop someone from smoking?
Okay, that's a very good question, and it's actually very important to understand how it works or how it doesn't work. So I did start with, as children, we actually undergo some programming or conditioning. So there is something that defines you as Kathy. There's something that I define, or that defines me as Muriel. Most of that, those belief systems and values, they were developed between the time we were conceived and age 7. By age 7, most of that was already settled in us as humans. And the majority of that, let's just agree, by the time you were 7 years old, you didn't have the critical faculties developed well enough for you to know the difference between good and bad, or what your path in life was. What you had was stuff that you took, hand-me-downs from your parents and caregivers and from your teachers when you started school and church and all the other, and grannies, grandparents, and the people around you, and you just modeled that, and you took that as your own beliefs as well, and that becomes your identity. That gives you beliefs about what is the meaning of life, what do things mean or don't mean, and what am I or am I not. So here is where the issue is. If, for example, those beliefs and conditionings, they were stuff that really were good for you, they were serving you. For example, I'll give you one of mine, because there's a reason why I ended up in hypnotherapy. I grew up in a family, including my grandparents.
Maybe let me pause you there and let's rewind, okay? How does an electrical engineer, because I believe, which one came first? How does an electrical engineer also become an author, also become a hypnotherapist? Which came first? And because these two, all of these are so diverse, how did that happen?
Okay, how does it not happen, Kathy? Because society has conditioned us and grouped us into engineers, left-brained, artists and creatives, right-brained, and the moment you subscribe to that and accept it, then it defines you. It limits your world, and you're blinkered into this little engineer.
That's true.
But for me, I think one of the things that I discovered early on, even while studying engineering, was that I can be anything that I choose to be. And that's just, fortunately for me, it's one of the values that I got from my grooming, that you can be anything that you want to be. So if I can be anything, what is it that actually tickles my fancy that I like or enjoy? And from a young age, I really enjoyed helping people and understanding what actually is life, what makes people tick, why do people behave the way they do? How do you explain that from a pastor's home, one kid goes and takes over the father's mentor, they're also a pastor, the other one goes and, he's just crook and roguey and steals and causes hassles and nightmares to everyone else in the community. They grew up in the same household, same mother and father, they were sitting around the same table. How do you explain that difference? So for me, those were things that were always fascinating for me that I needed to understand. So I always had that. But I also reached my own issues where, you know what, despite my efforts and I'm doing all these things, starting businesses, they go to a certain point and, everything just crumbles and you lose lots of money. Until at some point I lost everything, basically, including my savings and house. I made some bad investment decisions in some countries. And that forced me to reevaluate. You come back and say, who is Muriel? Who am I really? Why this? And the moment you ask those questions, the quality of your questions determines how far you go in life, I believe that. So out of that questioning, I ended up find my answers and, a way out of the quagmire that I was in. I then got, I eventually found myself in hypnotherapy. So I'm actually a product of the process.
Wow.
And a happy one. That's why I'm doing it. Because it worked for me and it was like quick like that, So I said, wow, maybe this is actually a really good tool that I can now use because, like I said, I'd always wanted to help people and I'd always been helping. But I realized this tool, I love it because it's got fast, efficient, permanent results. So that's how I got there.
Wow.
Yeah. So the engineer came first, the therapy much later. Authoring, it can happen anytime, I guess. Wow. But I realized lots of people need to hear this. We're talking during the break about there's energies and people are not even aware of this. And at least those who want to read can read and start seeing, okay, is this what's actually happening in my life or in life in general? And, take what you can. So that's the idea of the book.
All right.
And some programs that I run as well. So, yeah. Okay.
Many hats that she wears. I did say this. I think I also want to put forward the question of balance at some point to you, but I see myself not completing all the questions I have for you before I run out of time.
Okay.
Dr.
Chinoda. Come back.
So yeah, we'll try and have you next week. I want to remind the listener that this show is not about Kathy alone. It is about everybody listening. It's about you as well as an individual and trying to see how this can assist you. So please send through your questions, your comments, your queries, and we'll get Dr. Chinoda to address them for you. So remember, our SMS line is 14962. Our phone number in studio is 3956962, and our WhatsApp line is similar to the phone number. It's +267 3956962. We continue in just a bit.
Ngasani. Power to engage your world is on 97.7 FM.
It is 2:14 on Gabs FM. Time flies when you're having fun. And Dr. Chinoda says that, well, at the end of the day, some of it is hypnosis. You will actually have self-hypnotized. Is that the word?
Yes.
You will have self-hypnotized, right? And so, you know what, before we continue, let me just quickly run you through this one. How do you balance? Because you are still wearing so very many hats. And, the hats that we're talking about, not even including your private or personal ones. So whether you're a mother, wife, sister, cousin, friend, daughter, all of those also require time, energy, and effort. But apart from that, author, electrical engineer, hypnotherapist, how do you balance all of those? How do you find the time? Do you compartmentalize? Do you have a timetable? How do you work it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Lots of people ask me that. First of all, people get surprised by how do you actually get to do things that are so not aligned in terms of people believe engineering and therapy are too far from each other, almost diametrically opposed. But I don't believe in that, Personally, I actually believe we are this expansive beings, if you allow yourself to be, as expansive, and you can go as far as you want to go. That's really a choice that you make for yourself. It's rather a limit or a boundary that you put for yourself. I'm limited to just this, and you allow your profession to define you. I don't allow that to define me. Or you allow your passion and purposes in life to define you. That's a different direction. How do I balance that? I believe in energy management. Let me manage my energy. I don't get involved in other people's drama. Because when you do, you actually, you find your energy is poured here and there and places, and you actually are not focused and concentrating. So I actually believe in maximization. So if I'm going to sit and I'm writing a book and I'm writing another one, this is a time or a compartment of time where I'm actually going to be productive and creative, and I'm actually just focused on that. So I do that for that time slot. And I generally find I can do that better in the morning. I'm not an early morning person, but morning works for me for those sort of things. And then the other stuff, then I can see my clients later in the day. It's not to say that, I need less energy for my clients, but the amount of concentration and effort that I require for that sort of thing is aligned with, with where I'm at energy-wise. So it's really about understanding where you're most productive as a person, you as an individual, and then, slot whatever you're going to do in alignment with those energy levels in your energy management cycle. Having said that, I'm a very big fan of, and I used to play sport a lot. So I find starting my day with some meditation, of course, and some exercise in the morning helps me get those energy levels. Then I can balance my day. But you really need to be organized, obviously, to say the time share for this is this much, or for the whole of this week, I'm just going to work on therapy and stuff things. Next week, I can do my consulting and digital transformation things. Like the last 2 weeks I was in Botswana, I was really working on the digital transformation and engineering stuff. I didn't have time for therapy. But for the next 2 weeks or so, I'm going to be working on this. So yeah, that's how you balance. But you can balance if you choose to. Fortunately, I'm not a mom, so I don't have the kids to worry about and cook for. But still, the point is, there's still other roles and responsibilities in life that you really need to manage. But it's something that we can manage if you put yourself up to it. I think we waste lots of time doing lots of things that are really not value-adding.
I want to just rewind a little bit and go down to, you said you don't, you make it a point not to involve yourself in other people's dramas. What does that mean?
Yes.
So if you see a friend, a family member going through stuff, you step back. What does it mean? What does that look like?
So they're going through stuff, and they're going to project their energy to you.
Yeah.
Or at least you kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Are you going to accept that negative energy and let it pull both of you down? Because then, most of us, that's how we behave. Or somebody is going to be shouting at you, or, one of those family dramas and things like that. You allow yourself to be reactive. So by reacting, you're actually giving them the upper hand. You're allowing them to zap your energy, and now you're getting into this, and it's a fight of words or fight of emotions. You've actually lost your balance, and you're giving your energy and power away. When you've given off that energy is no longer available for you to be creative, to find a good solution, for example, or to be going on with the rest of your life. That's what I mean by I don't get involved in other people's dramas. So I don't do that, because if a family member, is having an issue, how can I be available to raise up the energy level and bring them to a place where they can still stand on their own 2 feet? If I need to be helping them financially or otherwise materially, I'll help them, but I'm not going to be involved in the low energy vibration. It doesn't help if both of us are now at that low energy vibration. Yes. Yeah. That's what I mean by other people's dramas. And people have got lots of dramas. People want to play victim. They want you to feel sorry for them. Oh, you don't understand, and all the other things. That's not to say that we don't help people. But don't, stoop down to their levels. Don't react. Respond, not react. That's my mantra.
Respond, don't react. And I would like us to get into a little more detail on that. At another point, I see myself absolutely running out of time, and there's so much that I want to touch on, Dr. Chinora. And let's get back into the issue. We're talking here about hypnotherapy, and we've gotten you to explain to us what the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy is. We've talked a little bit, trying to bust some of these myths around, mind control. I think a lot of the time this is one that comes up very often, where people say,
it does.
Is it something that we want to, try? And I've got a message here from somebody, and I think you've touched on this, but I'm going to ask you to do it again, because I know this is somebody who's tried to quit smoking. Are, how effective is hypnosis with helping quit smoking and remaining smoke-free? So I think you touched on the quitting smoking, but then the remaining smoke-free aspect. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Okay, all right. So, wow, this is going to be... How many minutes do you have so that I know whether to give you the abbreviated version?
No, give us the full one. We'll give it the time, because this is quite an issue. And I think, can we say smoking and drinking in the same basket?
Yes, so it's called compulsive behaviors, and there are lots of them, It's smoking, it's gambling, it's excessive eating, it's sex for some people, it's drugs, recreational drugs for others, and it's compulsive behaviors which you do not want or which are not good for you, basically.
Wow.
Now, so here's the starting point. For it to be called compulsive, it's something that you almost have lost control over, from your mind control, trying to use your brain, your conscious mind to control and say, so you say, I'm not going to smoke. Oh, today I'm going to actually just get only 2 cigarettes and not 5, and you find yourself on 5 or 10 for that day. Actually, the day you say, I'm not going to smoke, you actually end up, overdoing it. At that point, it has become compulsive behavior. So that's different from the guy who is a social smoker or social drinker who takes their 2 drinks and they're fine, they can control it. Now, what causes that? For the majority of times, it's because there's something that this person is trying to mask. They're avoiding feeling something that's painful. They're trying to, maybe forget something that happened that is too traumatic for them to face, or they're running away from some issue by, going towards something else, and that becomes substance abuse, which becomes addictive, right? So how do we actually deal with that in hypnosis? There's 2 ways of actually dealing with that in hypnosis. So there's different aspects to hypnosis. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next session. There's where I can suggest to you when you come for a session, you've told me you want to quit smoking, and I ask you, why do you want to quit smoking? Then we talk about all the benefits. What will it look like for you in life when you've stopped smoking, you're a non-smoker, and so we can then, during the hypnosis session, then actually feedback those benefits, why you actually would be better off as a person based on whatever those benefits and the ideas that you believe will be good for you. Okay, that's one aspect. It generally works. I find it's generally not long-lasting. It works for some time.
Yeah.
But the other, let's get to the root issue. What are you running away from? What is the trauma or the issue that you are masking with the smoking, or that the hurt or the pain, maybe the guilt or the shame or something that is beneath you smoking? If we get to that and deal with that, then it's lasting because we've dealt with the root cause. This tree, this stump kept coming up and coming up. We go to the root and kill where it's coming from. We don't expect it to be coming up again next year, right? That's how it becomes lasting. So it's very important to understand there's two versions or at least two main categories of hypnotherapy, but we can talk about it in a future program.
No.
But yes, where you go to the root cause and deal with it or nip it off the bud, then it can be coming back again because you've actually addressed the root cause.
So you think, if someone has any of these compulsive behaviors and say they stop and then come back to it and stop and come back to it, often that is where there's a root cause that hasn't really been
addressed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So often you find we're going to use let me give you an example. Since you're using the smoking one, 3 levels of trying to address it. So supposing this was your aunt. Let's go back to your aunt. Your aunt and your uncle is saying, you can't be smoking in the house. It's affecting all of us because we become secondary smokers. Yeah. And can't you see that it affects the kids and stuff? And tries to reason with them, try to beg your aunt and stuff like that. What are the chances that your aunt would actually have quit? Most likely not. Why is that? Reason and common sense coming from somebody else is not good enough a motivator. Someone has to want it. So that's the first thing. You have to want it.
It has to be you, the person with the compulsive behavior deciding you want to stop.
Yeah. So, and then the second layer or second level, sometimes you go to the doctor now, and so you are the smoker, you go to the doctor and, it's really affecting your lungs. If you actually don't quit smoking, we'll give you another 6 or 8 months to live and stuff like that. And you find lots of people, suddenly they have the willpower to quit, right? Suddenly they can quit. And for some of them, it might be lasting if it's something that really affects them at a very conscious level. But then for others, you find for some time, as long as that emotional guilt or something is in place, they can hold on to that, but sometimes it's not long lasting. Eventually they forget about this thing. Oh, I didn't die, I'm still here, so they continue. And for others, what you really need then is let's go to the belief system. Like I said, the trauma or the issue that's actually causing it to happen, let's do with that. Once we do, there's nothing else to go back to. Then it becomes permanent. So it's 3 different levels of therapy. So it depends on where they're at that's causing them to go back or to go back to the same issue. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense. But of course, questions, comments, queries are welcome at this point. And I think I want to just close off our conversation shortly after this if we don't get the interaction, because I do want you back. I think I want you back.
Sure, I'm happy to be back.
Let's agree next week, Saturday, we're going to get you on the Triple R show, and we're going to speak a little bit more to hypnotherapy, how it can work. I want us to get into the nitty-gritty of what happens in a session. How do I prepare myself for a session? What homework can I do? How can somebody find out more information? Let's start off there, Dr. Chinoda. If I'm interested and I've heard some of what you said, do you have a website? Can I go online somewhere and perhaps read a little more for myself so that next week's conversation has us with a little bit more understanding and knowledge of the conversation? Talk to me.
Yes, sure, absolutely. So, www.finalyunshackled.com. Finally Unshackled. Remember, I did say my book is Unshackled as well.
Yep.
So, finalyunshackled.com. They can actually book a discovery. It's a free 30-minute session where we can talk about what are the issues, what is the pain that they're going through, or the area of their life that's really not moving forward, where they might need some help. Because hypnotherapy helps in lots of areas. I'm sure we talk about that in future sessions. But yeah, if you find you've been doing something, going over and over doing the same thing, and you're not getting a breakthrough and you're feeling stuck and frustrated, might be something that's got an underlying issue that hypnotherapy could help with. So yeah, they can book a free discovery session and we can chat about it.
I'm so excited because I want to have a hypnotherapy session, and I think definitely it's going to assist and alleviate a lot of issues that I have. So I cannot wait for next week. I'm going to go on and do some homework on it and read up on it. But for now, let's close off the conversation, Dr. Chinoda, and prepare ourselves for next week. What are your last words?
Thank you so much for having me. It's great.
And it was a real pleasure to have you. We will have you again next week. We'll finalize, I think, about 12:30 is the time that we'll have you on Saturday, yeah?
Sure. It's a date. Thank you, Kathy.
Awesome. Have yourself a great Sunday, and we will talk soon, all right?
You too. Thanks. Bye.
2:30 is the studio time. I'm definitely looking forward to that conversation. And as Dr. Chinora has said, we will be catching up again next week. So go to www.finalyunshackled.com and check out the website. Read more for yourself. Go ahead and send through the question. You can send them today or next week, Saturday. And when we get Dr. Chinora back in studio, we will most definitely address the pros and cons, the ins and outs, and look more to this. Remember, the whole point of this show is just to help you relax, rejuvenate, and to recharge your batteries. That is what we're trying to do every single Saturday and Sunday between 12 and 3.